with you a very brief case study and I'll pose some questions around the case study. And when we get together in September, I'm going to pose these same questions to you after you take the assessment. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste of how this coincides with real life. So we have a manager named John. He's a mid-level manager for a medical device company, and he has 7 direct reports. Has a very dedicated work ethic, very hardworking. He's worked at the company since he got out of college, and has worked his way up. So he started there right out of college. He has very high expectations for himself, and therefore he has very high expectations of his employees, which sounds great, and it is great. And just with a current coaching client I have, it's one of those things where if you're used to running a marathon, if you're a marathoner and you're really successful at that, we tend to expect everyone else to run a marathon. And in reality, for someone who's never run before and they do a 5K, that's a huge accomplishment. So I just wanted to put that metaphor out there because sometimes the expectations that we do have, although very good, don't often match up with where people are currently. So John's motto is to go above and beyond what is asked to do. He's very fast-paced in both his actions and his words, and he wants things done a certain way. He has very little tolerance for mistakes and redos. And what happens is when employees make mistakes, John shows up with very little tolerance for those errors. So one question I would ask is, how would you describe his style of influence, given the 4 that we just went over? And again, those are assertive, concealed aggressive, openly aggressive, or passive. So just based on that brief summary, which of the 4 styles do you think John probably is his go-to at work? How does his style work well for him? So how does it enhance his leadership style? And I just want to, again, circle back to one of the behaviors, the openly aggressive. Remember, although it sounds like a very negative trait, it can work really well because that way, how you show up, people are very clear about where you stand on certain issues. So each of these styles can work well for people. And the last one is, how does it get in the way? So just like how it works well, how does it also erode the style or the leadership style? How does a certain characteristic sort of create a barrier between us, our employees, and the work that we ultimately do? And, again, this will be something that when we're together in September, I'm going to pose those 3 questions to you in class and have you talk in small groups around how does your style work well and how does it get in the way? So as a practice between now and then, I'd really like you to focus internally, at work, how you show up in certain situations. And if some of you want to also look at home as well, I think that's great. Sometimes we're very different at home. I hear that a lot. Folks will say, well, I'm this way at home all the time, so I like to practice this at work, and I think that's healthy. So that'll be something we can dabble in as well, not just work, but also, in your personal life. One thing I want to introduce to you all is another practice, and it's an acronym that I hope is easy to remember. So again, this is all about the style of influence is how we impact others, how we show up. And one practice that I'd like to introduce to you is called the ABC practice. Just simple, very quick, and it's something I'm going to have you actually do between now and September. So the A stands for assess. So try to become aware of some habits and ways in which you land on people. Go after feedback. Catch yourself in the moment. Be open to hearing it. That's one thing about feedback is if you're going to ask for it, you have to be open to hearing it. I can just speak for myself. Sometimes I'll say, hey, how am I doing? And then someone tells me how I'm doing and I don't like the answer. It's very easy to go, oh, well, I don't really want to hear that. So if you're going to ask for feedback, please be open. And again, that's the A part, to assess your behavior. B is for behavior, to seek specific examples. So if somebody, if you identify with the openly aggressive behavior, really try to find out what is it that you say and do. Those are the two key parts. How are you being seen in front of people? What are some very specific things that you have said that land on people that way? And that's a really easy thing to remember. I ask people, not as often as I should, but what did I say or do that had that impact on you? And really, if someone can't give you that feedback, it's really hard to make changes, because it's one thing to say you're a bad colleague. Okay, I don't really know what to do with that. But to say, Bridget, in staff meetings, I never hear you, right? I'm more passive. So that's helpful. And the last one is C. And I kind of have two words for this: continually and change. And they go together because after you assess your behavior, the C part is to make some shifts, make a change. What is something little you can do differently to show up in a different way? And the continually part is to keep checking in around it. Try it for 2 months, get feedback. Try it again, shift something else, keep going. I think that any changes we make in our interpersonal behavior is really to continually check in. Maybe that's another C, to check in with how we are doing. Just like when you're training for a race, or working on a painting, or trying to accomplish something, you continually check in on how it's going. Do you need to alter your workout? Do you need to find a new instructor? Those are all things that we have to constantly be looking at. So again, it's the ABC practice: assess behavior, and then continually change and check in.